The transport ship landed with a loud hiss of steam. Heavy doors opened and a group of new recruits stepped onto the alien outpost. The station floated above a red desert world, its walls made of dark metal and glowing blue lights. Soldiers of many species walked around with armor, weapons, and sharp eyes. This was a place of war, and only the strongest were respected. Among the new recruits was a single human. He was not tall, not very strong, and his eyes looked calm but quiet. He carried no special gear, no heavy armor, just a simple bag over his shoulder. The alien soldiers looked at him with doubt. Whispers spread quickly. "Why is a human here?" One lizard-skinned soldier muttered. "He looks weak," another alien said with a laugh. "He won't last a day." The human did not answer. He walked forward slowly, his boots clicking on the metal floor. He looked around the outpost with quiet eyes as if nothing surprised him. He seemed too calm for such a dangerous place. Inside the hall, the new recruits lined up. The alien commander entered, tall and strong, with horns curving from his head and glowing red eyes. His voice echoed through the chamber. "You are here to serve," the commander barked. "This outpost faces war. We have no room for cowards or useless skills. If you cannot fight, you are nothing." He walked in front of the line, scanning each recruit. When he stopped at the human, his eyes narrowed. "And you, human," the commander growled. "What can you do? You don't look like a fighter." The other recruits chuckled, waiting for the human to stumble or beg, but the man stood straight, silent for a moment. Finally, he spoke in a low, even voice. "I don't talk much, sir," he said, "but I can cook." The room fell silent for a moment. Then laughter erupted. Aliens slapped their knees, their sharp teeth flashing in amusement. "Cook?" one shouted. "Did we bring a kitchen servant?" Another mocked. "We need warriors, not chefs." The commander's eyes burned like fire. He leaned close, his heavy armor clanking as he moved. "You mean to tell me," the commander hissed, "that in the middle of war, when enemies prepare to strike us, all you can do is cook?" The human did not flinch. His face stayed calm. He only shrugged as if the question was not important. "Works for me," he said softly. The commander's jaw tightened. He was not used to such bold calmness from someone so plain. For a long moment, the hall stayed tense. The other recruits watched closely, expecting the human to be thrown out immediately. Finally, the commander gave a cold laugh. "Very well. If you fail, you are gone by sunrise. The kitchen is yours. Prove your worth or pack your bag." The human nodded once. No fear, no nervousness, just quiet acceptance. Later that day, he was guided to the outpost kitchen. It was not like any human kitchen. Strange glowing plants floated in tanks. Insects with bright shells crawled in cages. Meat from alien beasts hung from steel hooks, still dripping with blue blood. The air smelled strange, sharp, and sour. Two alien cooks stood there, tall and covered in grease. They looked at the human with sneers. "You will burn yourself," one said. "The food here is alive. Let's see if you last an hour." The other laughed. The human did not reply. He only rolled up his sleeves and washed his hands. His movements were calm, steady, and practiced. He opened his bag and took out a simple knife, worn but sharp. The alien cooks raised their brows. "What is he doing?" Without a word, the human began. He cut the glowing plants with smooth skill, sliced the strange meat with careful precision, and stirred alien spices into a pan. The kitchen filled with sounds of sizzling and boiling. Soon a smell rose, different from the sharp, sour scent of before. It was warm, rich, and comforting. Aliens passing by slowed their steps. Their noses twitched. "What is that smell?" one whispered. "I've never smelled food like that," another said. The cooks frowned, confused. They had never seen anyone handle alien ingredients with such confidence. The human did not look at them. He focused only on the fire, the pan, the knife in his hand. Minutes later, he placed a simple bowl on the table. A steaming dish glowing slightly but smelling like something more than food. It smelled like home, though none of the aliens could explain why. One curious soldier stepped forward, dipped his spoon, and tasted it. His eyes widened. He froze. Then his throat made a small sound, almost like a sob. "This," the soldier whispered, "this reminds me of my mother's cooking, but she died years ago." The hall went quiet again. Every soldier stared at the human, who only stood there silent and calm. For the first time, the alien outpost did not laugh at him. They looked with wonder and a little fear, and so the silent arrival of a human cook was no longer a joke. It was the beginning of something none of them expected. The night in the alien outpost was never quiet. Machines hummed, alarms blinked, and guards patrolled the metal corridors. But inside the kitchen all was still. Only the soft crackle of fire and the hiss of boiling liquid broke the silence. The human stood alone at the center. The alien commander's words still echoed in his head. "Prove your worth by sunrise." Around him, alien ingredients waited like strange puzzles. Meat that twitched even after being cut, plants that glowed bright green as if filled with lightning, spices that smoked when touched, releasing sharp scents. For any ordinary person, it was chaos. But the human did not panic. He rolled up his sleeves, cleaned the counters, and placed his small human knife on the table. Two alien cooks leaned against the wall, arms crossed, watching with smirks. "He will poison us all," one whispered. "The commander will throw him out in the morning," the other replied. The human said nothing. He did not argue or defend himself. Instead, he touched each ingredient with care, studying textures, smelling scents, and listening to the crack of flames. His calm movements unsettled the aliens. It was as if he had done this 1,000 times before, even though nothing here belonged to his world. Finally, he began. He chopped the glowing plants, his blade moving faster than expected. Sparks flew from the cutting board, but he worked as though he had seen this before. He marinated the twitching meat with powdered roots that hissed like snakes. The smell was sharp at first, but slowly softened into something warm. He boiled insect shells until they melted into a thick broth. The air changed. One alien cook frowned, sniffing the air. "This doesn't smell bad." "Don't be fooled," the other hissed. "It's human trickery." Still, they both found themselves staring at the pot, their throats tightening as hunger slowly crept in. The human moved like a soldier on a battlefield. Every motion was precise. Every sound, the rhythm of the knife, the bubbling of broth, created a strange music. It was not just cooking. It was command. It was control. Outside the kitchen, passing soldiers slowed. Their noses twitched. They stopped, sniffed again, and leaned closer to the door. "What is that?" a scaled warrior asked. "Food," another whispered, but different. Inside, the human lifted the pan. He mixed the meat, the broth, and the glowing plants together. Steam rose in colorful waves, curling around the ceiling like smoke from sacred fire. The smell traveled far, slipping through the vents, reaching the training halls and the barracks. Soon, half the outpost knew. A bold young alien soldier stepped into the kitchen. "You there, human," he said, voice sharp. "What are you making? It smells familiar." The human only shrugged. "A meal." The soldier scoffed, but hunger betrayed him. He dipped a spoon into the pot and tasted it. The moment the food touched his tongue, his eyes widened. He froze, the spoon trembling in his hand. Memories flashed. His mother's voice, the warmth of his childhood home, the sound of laughter around a small fire. His throat tightened. He turned away quickly, not wanting others to see his eyes water. Word spread faster than fire. One by one, curious aliens slipped into the kitchen. Tall warriors, winged scouts, armored guards, they all came. Each one tasted the dish. Each one fell silent afterward. Some lowered their heads. Some smiled faintly. Some clenched their fists as if remembering something long lost. The human still did not speak. He only served. At last, the commander himself entered. His heavy footsteps echoed as the room grew tense. The crowd parted and his burning red eyes locked on the human. "So," the commander said slowly, "you can cook. That much is clear, but food alone cannot win battles. Why should I let you stay?" The human looked up at him. For the first time, his calm eyes seemed sharper, stronger. He set down the ladle and spoke in his quiet voice. "Food brings soldiers together. It reminds them of why they fight. It gives them strength when weapons cannot." The commander frowned, unmoved. But when he glanced at his soldiers, his fierce warriors now eating side by side in silence, their faces softened with strange peace. He felt something shift inside. No speech, no order had ever done this. But one human meal had. The commander leaned closer, his voice a growl. "Very well. You will stay. But mark my words, if you fail me, not even your cooking will save you." The human only shrugged again, calm as ever. "Works for me." That night, the alien outpost was different. Soldiers who had once avoided each other sat together in the mess hall, sharing bowls of the human's food. Laughter returned. Old rivalries seemed weaker. Even the air felt lighter, and in the quiet kitchen the human washed his knife, wiped the counter, and prepared for tomorrow. He had said only a few words since his arrival. Yet already he had begun to change an army. Morning came to the alien outpost. The sky outside glowed red from the desert sun, and ships flew in and out, engines roaring like thunder. Inside, soldiers sharpened weapons, prepared armor, and shouted orders. War never slept here, but something had changed. In the mess hall, silence was gone. Instead, there was chatter, low laughter, and the clink of bowls. Soldiers who had once eaten alone now sat in groups. Species that usually stayed apart now shared the same table, and at the center of it all was the food, the humans' food. Every dish looked strange yet inviting. Steam rose, carrying warmth and comfort. A soup that shimmered with gold. Bread that was soft even though no one had ever tasted such a thing before. And roasted meat that smelled like a memory long forgotten. The soldiers could not explain it. They only knew one thing. When they ate his food, they felt whole. A winged scout, his feathers scarred from battles, leaned toward a lizard-skinned warrior. "I should hate you. Our tribes have been enemies for decades." The warrior grunted but dipped his spoon again. "Yet this food makes me forget that." "For now," the scout chuckled softly. "For now is enough." The human watched quietly from behind the counter. He said nothing, but his eyes followed every reaction. He noticed how shoulders relaxed, how voices softened, how even the toughest soldiers slowed down to savor the taste. The alien commander entered. He stood in the doorway, arms folded, scanning the room. His soldiers were calmer, their faces lighter. He narrowed his eyes. Was this good? Or dangerous? The commander moved to the counter. The human looked up at him, calm as ever. Without a word, the man placed a steaming bowl before him. The commander hesitated. Warriors did not lower themselves to kitchen food. Yet curiosity tugged at him. Slowly he lifted the spoon and took a sip. The hall went silent. Every soldier watched. The taste hit him like a strike. For a brief moment he was not a commander. He was a young child again before the war, sitting by a fire while his mother's hands served him food. Warmth spread through his chest, and for a single heartbeat, his armor felt lighter. He lowered the spoon slowly, eyes narrowing at the human. "You," he said softly. "This is not just food." The human shrugged. "It's never just food, sir." The commander did not answer. He pushed the bowl away, but his hand lingered for a moment too long before he pulled it back. His soldiers exchanged glances. They had seen it too. That afternoon, training drills began. Usually fights broke out between squads. Rivalries ran deep, and many soldiers carried hatred older than themselves. But this time something was different. A squad of armored brutes fought alongside nimble insect-like scouts. Their timing was sharper, their movements smoother. Instead of arguing, they listened. Instead of insults, they gave warnings and covered each other's backs. The commanders watching from the tower whispered in disbelief. "They fight as one said. "But how?" another asked. Down below, the human walked past the training grounds carrying a basket of fresh bread. His calm steps echoed in the dust. The soldiers trained harder when they saw him, as if proving they were worthy of another meal. By evening, the change was undeniable. The outpost felt alive. Tension had eased, unity had grown, and morale was higher than it had been in years, but not everyone was pleased. In the shadows of the hangar, a group of bitter officers whispered, "This human is dangerous. He weakens discipline. No, he binds them together, and that makes him more dangerous than any enemy." Their eyes glowed with envy and fear. They had trained soldiers with harsh words and punishment, yet in days the human had done what they could not, with nothing but food. That night, the human sat alone in the kitchen. He prepared for the next day, slicing vegetables that glowed in the dim light. The room smelled faintly of spice and smoke. His knife tapped softly on the cutting board. The commander stepped in, silent at first. He watched the man work. Finally, he spoke. "You have given them something I could not," the commander admitted. His voice was low, almost grudging. "But understand this, food will not stop the enemy's blades. When war comes, your meals will mean nothing." The human set down his knife and wiped his hands. His voice was quiet but firm. "Maybe. But food can remind them why they fight. And soldiers who remember what they fight for do not break so easily." The commander stared at him, red eyes glowing. For a long moment, neither moved. Then the commander turned and left without a word. Alone again, the human finished his work. The kitchen lights flickered. Outside, the sound of war drums echoed from the desert. The enemy was moving closer, but inside the outpost, something new had begun. The human was no warrior. He carried no blade, no gun. Yet already he had changed an army. And as the night grew darker, one truth became clear. His battle had only just begun. The alien commander rarely left his private office. Built high in the command tower, it overlooked the desert below, where storms of red dust rolled endlessly across the horizon. From here he planned battles, punished traitors, and signed orders that sent thousands to their deaths. His soldiers feared him. His enemies cursed his name. But tonight, as he sat alone at his desk, the commander felt something he had not felt in years. Confusion. On the table before him sat an empty bowl. The human's cooking. He had tried to push the memory away, but it refused to leave. The warmth, the taste, the way it had pulled him back to a childhood he thought buried under blood and iron. His jaw tightened as he clenched his fist. "This is weakness," he whispered to himself. Food should not bend the will of a soldier, yet deep inside he knew it was not weakness. It was something more dangerous, something powerful. A knock echoed at the door. The commander's second-in-command entered, a tall officer with sharp armor and cruel eyes. "Sir," the officer said, "reports from the Southern Patrol. Enemy scouts have been seen near the border." The commander nodded. "Double the watch. Prepare for attack." The officer hesitated. "And the human, sir?" "The cook, his presence spreads. Too far." The soldiers laugh, talk, even sit with old rivals. It weakens order. The commander's red eyes narrowed. "Weakens? No, he has done in days what we could not do in years. He has given them unity." The officer frowned, confused. "Unity does not win wars. Weapons do." "Full," the commander growled. "Weapons break. Armor fails. But unity makes armies unshakable." The officer lowered his head but left with a bitter scowl. Alone again, the commander stood and walked to the window. Below he saw the human, small and quiet, carrying baskets of bread to the mess hall. Soldiers swarmed him not with mockery but with respect. Some even smiled. The commander's claws dug into the metal rail. "How does he do it?" he muttered. That night, unable to contain his curiosity, the commander descended to the kitchen. The room glowed softly with firelight. The human stood at the stove, calm as always, chopping glowing vegetables into neat slices. The smell of spices filled the air. The commander stepped inside, his heavy armor echoing. "Human," he said sharply. The man looked up briefly, then returned to his work. "Sir." "Tell me," the commander demanded, "what is your secret? How does this cooking change my soldiers? What power hides in your hands?" The human paused, wiping his knife with a cloth. He spoke slowly in his quiet voice. "There is no secret, sir. Food is not just taste. It is memory. It is comfort. It tells a soldier he is still alive, even in war." The commander's eyes glowed with anger, but also with something else. Doubt. Memories do not win battles. The human looked up, his gaze steady. "No. But they give soldiers a reason to fight them." For a long moment, silence filled the kitchen. Only the sound of bubbling broth echoed. The commander's heart pounded. He hated the human's calm, hated that such simple words carried more weight than his speeches. Finally, he leaned closer, his voice low and dangerous. "If you are lying, I will cut you down myself." The human shrugged. "Works for me." The commander turned, his cape swirling as he stormed out. But inside his mind was shaken. Later that night, when the outpost had gone quiet, the commander unlocked a hidden drawer in his desk. From it, he pulled a small metal tin. Inside was a piece of dried bread, wrapped carefully in cloth. It was all that remained from his childhood, the last food baked by his mother before she died in the wars. He had kept it for decades, a secret no one knew. He stared at it now, the human's words echoing in his mind. Food is memory. The commander clenched the bread in his claws, trembling. For years he had buried this weakness, but now, a single human had uncovered it without even trying. The commander whispered to the empty room, his voice breaking. "Perhaps you are more dangerous than any weapon." At the same moment, far outside the walls, enemy war drums thundered in the desert. Their spies had learned of the human cook, and they feared him too. Not because he carried a blade, but because he carried something greater. The desert night was alive with sound. War drums echoed across the dunes, carried on the hot wind. In the distance, torches lit up dark shapes, an enemy war camp. Inside its largest tent, alien generals sat around a burning fire. Their faces were sharp, their eyes filled with hatred. The warlord, a towering beast with silver armor and scarred skin, slammed his clawed hand on the table. "Our spies confirm it," he growled. "The alien outpost is no longer weak. Their soldiers train harder, fight smarter, and no longer quarrel. Something has changed." A smaller officer leaned forward. "Not something, my lord, someone, a human." The warlord's eyes narrowed. "A human? They are fragile. They break easily. How can one man matter?" The officer spread a parchment across the table. On it was a sketch, rough but clear. A human, calm, holding a knife, standing in a kitchen. They call him the silent cook. He has no weapon. He does not fight. But he feeds them, and through his food he binds them together. Our spies say rival tribes now eat at the same table. Soldiers who once hated each other now fight side by side. The tent fell into silence. Even hardened generals shifted uneasily. They all knew unity was more dangerous than numbers. The warlord's lips curled into a snarl. "So, a cook turns armies into brothers? Then we will tear him from their hands and break him." The plan was born that night. Back at the outpost, the human worked in the kitchen as usual. The soldiers had grown used to his silence, his calm steps, his steady knife. To them, he was no longer just a cook. He was a sign of hope. But outside the walls, shadows moved. Enemy scouts slipped closer each night, marking weak points, counting guards. Their whispers filled the desert air. "Do not kill him," one hissed. "Capture him. Without him, their unity will crumble." Inside, the commander grew uneasy. Reports of enemy movement reached his desk daily. He tightened patrols, doubled watchtowers, and ordered silence after sundown. But still something gnawed at him. His soldiers were stronger, yes, but their hearts now depended on the human. If they take him... The commander muttered in his private chamber. He did not finish the thought. The attack came without warning. In the dead of night, alarms screamed across the outpost. Explosions shook the walls. Enemy raiders stormed the gates with blades and fire. Soldiers rushed from their barracks. But confusion spread quickly. The attack was not on the armory or the command tower. It was on the kitchen. The human had just finished preparing stew when the doors burst open. Dark figures rushed inside, blades glinting. Pots and bowls crashed to the floor as they struck down the tables. The smell of smoke filled the room. The human did not scream. He did not run. He only stood firm, his knife still in hand, not as a weapon, but as if he refused to let it go. One raider grabbed him by the arm. Another smashed the counters. Flames rose as oil spilled across the floor. By the time the soldiers of the outpost reached the kitchen, it was too late. The human was gone, dragged into the desert night. The kitchen was left in ruins, fire licking the walls, the air thick with smoke and loss. At dawn, the outpost was silent. Soldiers sat with empty bowls staring at the ashes. The place that had once given them strength was gone. Whispers spread. "They took him. What will we do now? Without him, we are nothing." The commander stood before them, his voice fierce. "You are still soldiers. You are still warriors. Do not forget your oath." But he saw it in their eyes. Fear, doubt, a crack forming where unity once lived. He returned to his tower, rage burning inside. For the first time, he felt powerless. The human had never carried a sword, yet his absence wounded the army deeper than any blade. Outside the walls, the enemy celebrated. In their camp, the warlord stood before the captured human. Chains bound the man's wrists, but his face was calm as always. The warlord laughed, his voice thunder shaking the tent. "Look at you. The great cook. The silent human. You will feed us now, not them, and when their spirits break, we will crush their outpost with ease." Still, the human said nothing. He only lifted his head slightly, meeting the warlord's glowing eyes. His silence was not weakness. It was defiance. And deep inside, even the warlord felt a strange unease because somehow he knew this battle was far from over. The enemy war camp roared with victory songs. Fires burned high, casting shadows across armored tents. Drums pounded through the night, each beat echoing their triumph. The human is ours. Inside the largest tent, the human sat on the ground, wrists bound by heavy chains. Around him stood guards with sharp blades and cruel grins. Yet he did not tremble. He did not beg. His calm eyes watched the fire pit in the center of the tent, glowing orange against the dark. The warlord entered with a heavy stride, his silver armor glinting in the firelight. His voice thundered like a storm. "Human," he growled, "your silence does not scare me. You will cook for us now. You will feed my army until your hands break. Then your people's spirits will collapse and their outpost will fall." The soldiers cheered, but the human only lifted his head slightly. His voice, when it came, was steady. "Unbind my hands," he said softly. "Give me fire, give me ingredients, and I will cook," the warlord laughed. "See? Even the proud cook bows to me." He waved a claw. The chains fell loose. But as the human stood, something in his posture unsettled the guards. His back was straight, his steps calm, his face unshaken. He looked less like a prisoner, and more like a commander. Soon strange ingredients were thrown before him. Wild roots pulled from the desert, meat of beasts hunted at dusk, jars of bitter spice. To the enemy, these were rough and harsh, meant only to fill stomachs. The human studied them in silence. Then slowly he began. He chopped the roots with precise cuts. He stirred the meat over the flames, letting the fire kiss it gently. He sprinkled the bitter spice but mixed it with others, balancing sharpness with warmth. His hands moved like a soldier on the battlefield, each motion controlled, each strike deliberate. The guards leaned closer, noses twitching. The scent rising from the pot was not harsh anymore. It was rich, comforting, strange. One guard scoffed, but hunger betrayed him. He dipped a spoon into the broth and tasted. His eyes widened, he froze. A memory flickered in his mind. His village before the war, his mother humming while stirring a pot. His throat tightened. Another guard tasted. Then another. Soon the tent grew quiet. The warlord's soldiers, hardened killers, stood in silence as tears formed in their eyes. "What trick is this?" the warlord snarled. "What poison hides in your food?" The human looked up, his voice calm. "No poison. Only truth. Food carries memory. Even your soldiers remember who they were before war stole it from them." The warlord slammed his fist on the table, but unease crawled into his chest. He looked at his soldiers. Men who had obeyed him without question now stood frozen, shaken by something as simple as taste. The human continued cooking, serving bowls one after another. And with each taste, more soldiers softened, more eyes filled with longing. Whispers spread like fire. "I remember my brother. This smells like home. Why do I feel this way?" The warlord roared to silence them, but their voices only grew louder. Unity, fragile, dangerous unity, was sparking among them too. Far away in the desert, the outpost soldiers marched through the night. The commander led them, rage burning in his red eyes. His army had been weakened by doubt, but now they moved with a new purpose. They were not marching for orders. They were marching for their cook. Inside the enemy camp, the human lifted a ladle. The firelight glowed on his face, calm and resolute. He spoke softly, but his words carried through the tent. "You think chains hold me, but you are wrong. I fight without weapons, and still, I win." At that moment, horns blared outside. Shouts erupted as the outpost's army stormed the camp. The timing was perfect. Enemy soldiers, their hearts unsettled by the human's food, hesitated to raise their blades. The warlord's fury exploded. "Traitorous human! You will die here!" He lunged forward, his massive claws raised. But the human did not flinch. He only stepped back, letting the boiling pot spill. Steam burst into the warlord's face, making him stumble. The tent shook as the commander burst inside with his soldiers. His red eyes locked on the human. Relief flickered in his fierce gaze. The human stood calm, surrounded by chaos, a simple knife still in his hand. He gave a small shrug. "Dinner's ready." That night, the battlefield turned upside down. The enemy had captured a cook, but instead he had captured their hearts. The outpost had come for rescue, but the human had already begun his own rebellion, with nothing more than fire, food, and memory. And the warlord realized too late, he had feared the wrong thing. The true weapon was never the human's hands. It was what his food awakened in others. The battlefield was chaos. Fires burned in the desert night. Weapons clashed and cries of war filled the air. Yet in the center of it all stood the human, calm, steady, his simple knife still glinting in the firelight. He was no warrior, yet the battle turned around him. The outpost soldiers fought harder than ever before. Their commander roared orders, his red eyes burning, but even he knew the truth. They were not fighting for victory alone. They were fighting for him. The enemy army wavered. Some dropped their weapons, their hands trembling after tasting the meal of defiance. Others hesitated, struck with memories of families, villages, and lives they had long buried. The human had planted something deeper than fear in their hearts. He had planted doubt. The warlord, furious and desperate, charged once more. His claws tore through the air as he bellowed, "You are nothing but a cook. You cannot defeat me." But the commander stepped between them, his massive blade clashing with the warlord's strike. Sparks flew, metal rang, and the ground shook with their fury. The human did not run. Instead, he returned to the fire pit where a pot still boiled. He stirred it calmly, as if the raging battle around him was nothing more than background noise. Soldiers from both sides watched, confused. Why did he cook now, in the middle of blood and fire? Then the smell spread again. Rich, warm, comforting. The scent cut through smoke and dust like a beacon. Enemy soldiers froze. Outpost warriors steadied their blades. Even the commander and warlord glanced toward the pot, their clash slowing. The human spoke at last, his voice calm but carrying across the battlefield. "Food reminds us why we live.
Why we fight.
Why we do not give up." His words, simple yet powerful, struck deeper than any weapon. The enemy's unity crumbled, not because they were weak, but because they remembered what they had lost. One by one, they dropped their weapons, staring at the ground with haunted eyes. The warlord roared in rage, "Traitors! Stand and fight!" But no one obeyed. His own soldiers stepped back, unable to meet his eyes. The warlord turned to the human, his fury like fire. You have stolen my army with bowls and spoons?" The commander stood beside the human, his blade raised. "No, he gave them back what you took, hope." The warlord let out one last scream of rage, but when he charged, dozens of alien soldiers, his own and the commander's alike, blocked his path. The battle ended not with a blade, but with silence. At dawn, the desert was quiet again. Fires had died, weapons lay abandoned, and soldiers from both sides sat together, tired but alive. The human moved among them, serving the last of the stew. He spoke little, as always, but his presence carried more weight than speeches. Soldiers who once hated each other now shared bowls side by side. Laughter rose again, soft but real. The commander stood at the edge of the camp, watching. For years he had believed fear and strength alone held armies together, but a single human had proven him wrong. He approached the man, his heavy steps crunching in the sand. "You changed them," the commander said quietly. "You changed me," the human shrugged, offering him a bowl. "I told you, sir. I don't talk much, but I can cook." For the first time in years, the commander smiled, a real smile. He accepted the bowl and ate in silence. Weeks later, stories spread across the stars. They spoke not of great battles or mighty weapons, but of a single human cook who united enemies with food. Whispers carried his legend, the silent cook, the human who fed armies. The knife that cut no flesh but healed broken hearts. Wherever soldiers gathered, they remembered him. Some claimed the taste of his meals still lingered in their memory. Others swore they could fight longer, endure more because of the hope he had given them. He never asked for titles. He never carried a sword. Yet his legacy grew larger than any warrior's. In the end, it was not fire, steel, or blood that turned the tide of war. It was food. And the silent human who reminded everyone, alien and human alike, that strength is not only found in weapons, but in the simple act of sharing a meal. That night, under a quiet desert sky, the human returned to his small kitchen in the outpost. He cleaned his knife, prepared ingredients, and lit the fire once more. The war was far from over. But tomorrow, as always, there would be dinner.